I'm gonna your Iowa shirt.
Yes. It
Iowa
says
Strong.
it says Iowa Strong. I got it last summer after reading about the derecho and everything that happened there. So part of the proceeds went to Cedar Rapids and other communities affected by it. So I thought I'd wear my Iowa Strong shirt today while talking to you about Iowa. And the bracelet that my mother-in-law gave me a few years ago, it's made out of an old Iowa license plate.
Very cool.
So, just showing that home state pride.
And with a little accent there,
Yeah.
because I've seen you describe yourself as Iowegian.
Yes.
And my wife is Norwegian.
Yep.
Or Iowegian, I guess. She's
Sure.
not from Norway. But so one of the big shocks that I encountered when I started going to like dinners with her family was encountering the Norwegian slice, where basically like if there's something, you keep cutting it in half.
Oh, yeah.
And taking half, and so you're never taking the last of something.
Yeah, it's not the nice thing to do. I feel like that's a very polite thing. I've never heard it called the Norwegian slice, but thinking about that, yeah, we did that a lot. Like, yeah, you keep cutting down so you don't eat the whole thing and you're not the last one to have the last bite. Or the brat of the family would yoink and take the last one, Well,
I was always the eldest, and so like I never had any problem like grabbing the last of something.
Sure.
And apparently that was frowned upon in my wife's family, as I quickly learned.
Dang.
Wow.
But we're all good now.
Good. You've worked through it.
Like 10 years or so, they've accepted.
Nice.
It.
Does your wife's family make kringla?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
It's a big thing around Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Sure.
My wife and daughter go over and they spend hours over there making it.
Nice.
That's
Are
good.
they
That's good stuff.
Are they a pretzel shape or like the infinity sign?
I'd say more pretzel-like, but like a very compact pretzel.
Yeah, they never.
So there's not like space in between.
No. But like just that pattern of the pretzel.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with it more like a figure eight type of way. But then my stepmom, when she makes more of the pretzel shape. So it's something that I've learned that people. And my favorite kringla is made in Story City, Iowa, by Snuck's Kitchen, and they make it in the kind of H shape. Anyway. When people know what kringla is, I'm just so happy that I could talk about it.
We gave away kringla at our wedding.
Yeah, we had kringla at our wedding. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And it's specially made, shipped in.
Yeah, from Snucks. Yeah. From Story City. Yep.
What was your first experience with Mystery Science Theater?
My first experience that I really, really remember was watching it in college. A friend of mine had his dad would just record a bunch of episodes for us on VHS tapes and send it to us. And we would have essentially, MST3K marathons on weekends that we didn't have shows. I was a theater major in college. So a lot of our weekends were a lot of shows, but those weekends we had free, we would watch MST3K and just really laugh until like Monday morning. And we were just all in pain from laughing so hard and just like staying up almost all weekend watching it. And when I worked at Valley Fair Amusement Park in Shakopee, Minnesota one summer. And after SNL, they would always air MST3K. And so we, that kind of became a thing too. So college for me was when I really discovered it. And it really changed my life in a lot of ways.
How so? Like, how would you say it changed? I mean, I guess there's the obvious, but
well, yeah, but even like, even watching it just as an Iowa student, or a student in Iowa, especially in the here we go late 90s, to see something that was made in the Midwest was just blew me away. And, when you saw the Hopkins, Minnesota address pop up, you're like, oh, I know where that is. And so many of the references were just so specific, to Minnesota particularly, but, and the home economics short that takes place on the Iowa State campus, like yeah, I just had never seen things that I was familiar with on TV. And to know that it was just a bunch of group of friends, like literally cobbling these bots in this universe together. So just as a comedian, and as an ION, it really made me go, oh, maybe I could do something like this someday. Cause I never thought that it could be a day-to-day thing for me until I saw MST3K.
How about you, Tim? What was your first experience?
I was a nerdy little kid growing up in Southern Illinois in a little town called Jerseyville. And I have an older brother named Josh, who's 2 years older than me. And Josh had a friend named Rob, and Rob had cable, which at the time was still a slightly exotic thing, or at least an exotic thing that my parents didn't want to pay for. Yeah. So he had comedy. It was Comedy Central at the time, and told us about this ridiculous, fun, silly show where a guy and two robots make fun of cheesy old movies. And so we kind of knew what it was. And I think we were on vacation. So we were in like a hotel and we're just flipping around the channels and we're like, that's it. Here it is. And so we caught part of an episode. And I remember, I think it's Fire Maidens from Outer Space, because I remember it's the host segment with Dark Crow. They called him Timmy. He's like a matte black crow. And I remember because it comes to a climax of where Joel uses like a rake or a broom to pitch him out of the ship. And he says like, see you in hell or something. We got in a little bit of trouble because the Ryder family was very strict, and hearing the word hell used in that context
in a puppet show, no less.
Puppet show was a little scandalous, but I loved it and was hooked and convinced Rob to make tapes for us from then on out, and sought out as much as I could.
You know, having been fans for, I guess I'd say probably 20 plus years now, then well, like what stand out as your favorite episodes?
For whatever reason, for like my college friends and I, and to me this day, like Angel's Revenge is one of my favorite episodes. I love it. I love the actual movie. I love the sketches. It is one of those things that we just quote. Like I quote it not daily, but maybe on a weekly basis. So like, Angel's Revenge is one of my favorites. I have to say Mitchell, like sometimes I feel like it's a cop out, but that whole episode, like, so great. And I Accuse My Parents, which I found out is one of Joel's favorites. So now I feel weird saying that, but that was one of mine before I was on a tour bus with Joel for 2 different tours and learned that was his. Those are off the top, and there's so many shorts. I really, really love the shorts too. I don't know. What are some of yours?
For Joel, it's I Accuse My Parents and Mitchell. Yeah. For Mike, it's The Thing That Couldn't Die.
Oh yeah.
And Revenge of the Creature.
Yes.
And I always go to bat for the movie, This Island Earth.
Tim loves it.
Jonah and I really bonded over that. We feel like it gets a bad rap, even amongst fans of the show, I think, because the people who made it had such a rough time making it with studio notes and all that. But man, I love it so much. And it was the one I had access to the most. I wore out that tape, and I probably have that riff memorized. I could do.
You kind of do, actually. We watched it the other night in honor of the anniversary, and Tim was laughing like he'd never seen it before, but then also like talking along with it the entire time, which is what you want.
Yeah.
Joel just went, oh, hey, these are the Second City guys. And, Tim and Ross were like, what? And Joel was like,
he's like, oh, hey, I saw your show.
Yeah.
And then the Kickstarter happened, and we were both backers because we were fans and we wanted it to happen. And it ended, and he gives us a call and was like,
he called me and he's like, hey man, we got all this money. We're going to make a show. You want to ride on it?
You want in?
You want in, man? And I was like, sure, Joel. Hey, is that husband of yours want in? I was like, yeah. I said, I'm going to put him on speaker. And then he's like, hey, do you think, hey, Tim, do you think you'd want to like be on camera, like as a weird, like creature thing? Like it was a bonehead, but he didn't know what it was at that point.
And a little minion. And do you have someone who's the physical opposite of you?
that you would want to work with? And
we said, yes. His name is Zach Thompson.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he was like, hey, Rebecca, so I've always thought that you and Mary Jo kind of look like, do you want to play her clone. I think we're going to call her Synthia, but it's Synthia because, you know, she's synthetic. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. He's like, well, you think about it. And I was like, I mean, we don't have to think, like, we're in, but sure, if you want to call us again tomorrow to like double check, you know. And so that's how
it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, he knew we were both you know, comedians and writers and performers, blah blah blah. And then it wasn't until July, like maybe 2 or 3 months before we shot season 11, that he asked me if I would voice GPC. And that's what I still kind of cry thinking about that one. So anyway, yeah, when we first wrote our 2 first episodes, we knew we would be like Synthia and a Bonehead, but I didn't know I'd be GPC. And yeah, we've been involved ever since. So it was kind of a happenstance. It's a really long story. Sorry.
I was also curious then about how the two of you met.
We still haven't met yet. We don't know each other yet.
That's an even longer story.
Here
we go. We both met in Chicago.
Yeah.
I moved there after college. I went to Drake, as you know, and I moved to Chicago to pursue studying and performing improv and sketch comedy. And that's kind of the place you want to go if you want to learn that stuff.
Yeah.
So we were both ensemble members at a theater called Comedy Sports Chicago. And we met there and made each other laugh and then fell in love.
Sure.
I wasn't sure, like, there have been so many times where I've been somewhere else and someone will be like, oh, you know, so-and-so lived in Iowa. Maybe you know each other. And
yeah.
So I wasn't sure.
No, I mean, Tim and I were never in Iowa at the same time because after I went to Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa. And so after college, I moved to Chicago. So I had been in Chicago quite a few years before Tim was. So while you were at Drake, I was already in Chicago.
Right.
So, but the fact that he did go to Drake was in his favor because I'm like, okay, at least he knows a little bit about Iowa.
I spent a little bit of time in Iowa, and that was enough to get me
that was like
the slightest bit of cred to open the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, we basically met through improv in Chicago.
So going back to GPC, it's a character she's a character with a lot of history, and a lot of history being played by dudes.
Yes.
So how did you decide to approach the character, knowing you'd be the first woman playing her?
Well, I did when Joel had asked me, and it was another thing where he was like, well, think about it. And I was like, all right, but yes. Okay. So stop it. Just no, I mean, I gave her like 4 different voices. Like I gave 4 different takes because I didn't know if they still kind of want that kind of falsetto-y voice so people could maybe, yeah. And Joel was very clear. He said, Rebecca, I want it to be your voice, but happy, like a happy you. And I was like, well, what's happiness, Joel? And he said, oh, Rebecca. Oh, but no, I think he wanted her to be very, very female and Midwestern and kind of, maybe like a little bit of musicality in her voice. And I really love GPC. It sometimes bothered me watching it, even when I was in college. I'm like, oh, she's kind of the only female character in regard to the bots. And, you know, she was kind of dopey. And I feel like they kind of, she was definitely like a mother figure in some ways too, which was very lovely. And I wanted to kind of update her in the sense of like, oh, she can hang with these boys and she can play along with them, but she still has stuff to do. And Joel had said, I think the reasoning for her character early on was it took a lot of her to run the ship. So maybe that's why she was a little slower. But with technology being the way it is now, she can kind of, you know, roll with stuff. And I was really happy to learn that they wanted her to be riffing, you know, in season 11 and 12. And so that was a lot of fun. So I just wanted her to be, I still wanted her to be warm and fun, but I wanted her to like be updated with that kind of quick mentality and not sharpness, but I don't know. She can keep up.
Yeah, she's with it.
She can set the pace if she wants to, or she doesn't, but she doesn't have to participate in all the shenanigans that that the boy bots have to be in. So yeah, it's weird that she is so much like my voice, but then not.
So has Joel told you what is in the payload?
No. No, he hasn't. And in fact, like I really thought during the first tour, the Watch Out for Snakes tour, I thought maybe we'd start to answer it there. And I think a lot of people did too. And then he didn't. So I'm like, okay, he's waiting for season 12, like for the gauntlet to answer it. No. So then, at one point he's finally like, it's the payload. I don't even know what that means, man. So I was like, all right. So I don't know. And I don't feel, I would try to make up answers. And then I realized that's not the right thing to do either.
It's very Zen. It's the payload. The payload is the payload.
It's what you need it to be. I think he might have thought there had to be a reason for GPC just to come up and down. And maybe that was just how he felt justifying it. Yeah. And I wanted her to like be able to come in and out whenever she wanted to be. So we'll see.
And if you're thinking too much about it, you should really just relax.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a very Joel thing to answer the question. Well, it's the payload, and it just leads to further questions. But he's at least answered the question. Yeah, the initial question.
I'm really not keeping any sort of answer from anyone. I feel like for a while people thought I was like no, I truly don't know, and that's the answer I've been given. So
I know there's an NDA, so you can't say.
Right. I wish. I mean, then I'd have more peace of mind. But no, that's just Joel.
It's Synthia.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new character, but with ties to Pearl Forrester, and it's been interesting to see her kind of evolve over the return, and then with the live tour and the gauntlet, where she's finding her own voice and not so robotic and everything. I was curious, what do you feel is, and I guess is Mega Synthia a clone of Synthia? Does Synthia have her own clone now?
That's a good question. I think Mega Synthia, yes, is a clone of Synthia, but still is a clone of Pearl. If Joel never answered that one for me, did he ever talk about it when you were?
I'd have to I'd have to go back and look at the scripts.
The interesting thing is, I unfortunately did not get to see this most recent live tour. I've gotten to know Yvonne probably the best out of the cast. We've, we'll message each other or call, because she had a couple of questions of how does Synthia really do her makeup and stuff like that, it was Synthia for season 11. There really wasn't a lot of direction for her. And there was so much going on. I would ask Joel things sometimes, but he kind of just really let me do what I wanted. And for that, I just was like, well, I'm literally just going to watch Mary Jo and mirror everything Mary Jo does. Because I, as a person, was so starstruck that it was hard for me to put on that professional hat and just be an actor with her. And then for the tours, it was just more fun. Tour Synthia is very similar to me. If I'm running a show, then we're going to have fun and I'm going to be an idiot. And so will she a little bit. And it was fun to have that mad thing behind her. So she kind of runs on ego, like a lot of the Forresters do. Mega Synthia, I hope I get to meet, I hope I get to see her someday. And I hope Synthia and Mega Synthia get to be in the same space someday too.
At this point, what do you feel Cynthia's place is among the Mads?
That's a good question. Because I feel like in the gauntlet, she was starting to get a little frustrated with Kinga because she was doing the grunt work for now I'm blanking on what it was. All I can think of is Idiot Control, the
drink.
The drink, yeah. And there literally was a scene where King, Cynthia's trying to push King out of the way and King is pushing Synthia out of the way. This is what I've done. And so I thought, maybe Synthia might try to take over, mutant clone, become a next Mad. I have no idea. Maybe she'd do things on her own. I really feel like with Synthia, she could go anyway. Hi, buddy.
So since the two of you weren't involved before the Kickstarter last time, I was curious, how does it feel to be a part of the process this time.
I mean, it's fun.
It's really great.
Yeah.
To do some of these events, especially some of these live streams, has been really fun to interact with the different. I did one the other night that was a room full of servos.
Oh, wow.
So it was myself and Connor from the live tour and Baron from the Netflix series, and then Jay Elvis, the original Tom Servo, along with Joel, just watching an old episode and hanging out and tugging with each other. It was super fun.
Yeah.
And I know fans have been really enjoying it. And we're not involved a ton in like the behind the scenes planning, which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
But to just be along for the ride is super fun. But I will say that we're both still backers because we're fans and we want it to happen.
Yeah.
That has not changed.
We backed last time, we're backing this time. We might not need some of the levels that people do but anyway, we're not mega backers.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't need to set visit because we'll probably be there.
No, I don't need a set visit. But no, it's been so much fun. Also, like I had not seen Mary Jo since we shot 20, I saw her one time after we shot season 11, but I haven't seen her in years. So it was really fun. And I haven't seen Bees since the Gauntlet. So sorry, I did a live stream on Friday night. So yeah, it's been really fun to be like, hey, do you want to do this stuff? And we're like, yeah. Count us in. So
it's the writing process like for Mystery Science Theater.
It's super fun.
It's
first
the
of all,
funnest. It's the funnest writing I think I've ever done.
It's really nice to never have to be staring at a blank page.
Yeah.
Like you might do with other writing projects. You always have the movie to bounce off of. So if you're stuck on one bit, you can just go to another part and see what you have for that.
And that first round too, as you're just going through the movie, it's so fun to just literally throw anything at it that you can think of. It's really fun to like not have to edit yourself at that point of just like, oh, this reminds me of a NASCAR bit. I'm going to write it.
From a technical standpoint, there are a couple different ways that we do it. Either we are on our own writing remotely and we use a program called Collaborate, where we just have the movie in a browser and we pause it and put a riff in and it embeds it with a time code as a note in that. And then they bring all the remote writers together and it goes into a big spreadsheet for options when they're producing it. But then you also can be in a live writer's room,
which is so fun.
Which is the most fun of just half a dozen people in a room watching the movie in typically like 5 to 10 minute chunks and shouting stuff out.
Yeah. When we first are focusing on that first, 15 minutes, I was in the writer's room where Elliot Kalin was our head writer. And he literally be like, all right, we're going to watch this 15 minutes together. Anything you have that you really like, shout it out. Like, so we'd share what we had worked on like the night before. And then you watch it again, just with fresh eyes, all of us just literally making fun of each other or like with each other. And then as Jonah had said the other day, you definitely hit pockets of movies where there's just nothing. And that's when being in the writer's room really helps, as opposed to writing by yourself.
Yeah. Each way has their own advantages.
Yeah.
It's really nice to be on your own so you can pause something and look it up and try to get this reference exactly right and phrase it exactly how you want it.
Yes, you can fit it in the time segment.
Because that's always the challenge.
The only criteria we're really given initially is only write in the pauses, don't write over movie dialogue. And remember that a lot of people worked on this. And, treat it with that. I mean, we all know we're watching a bad movie, but it's also something that people worked on. So let's give it that kind of.
Yeah, there's a difference between
this sucks. What a stupid
difference between dancing with the movie and riffing on it and just ripping it apart and saying this sucks and everyone involved should kill themselves.
Yeah. Which inevitably you will riff at some point because you hit a wall.
But then also, so there's an advantage to being on your own, but then also an advantage to being in a room with other people so you can bounce off each other's ideas and build things. And that's how you sort of come along. That's a great way to come up with those larger ideas. Like we're going to really pinhole this character as this archetype and keep that running for the entire movie. Those often come out of the live writer's room.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream movie that you'd like Gypsy to be able to drop into for a riff or two? And I guess same Tim, for if you had a chance with reprising Tom for a movie you'd like to riff.
I mean, I'm going to be selfish and say I would love Gypsy to be in the theater longer than just 2 drops. That would be really fun, I think. Do you have a movie?
I feel like my answers are always a little weird because a lot of Misty writers and performers sort of grew up watching those horror movies and sci-fi films on Saturday afternoon. And I feel like my analog for that is whatever they were playing on Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights. So I said this once in a panel and Felicia got very upset with me, but my choice to riff a movie would be a Disney movie called Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken.
Oh, with the horses? Is that
with the horse diver?
Oh,
yes, the horse diving girl who goes blind when there's a bad horse diving accident. I know it's very sweet and sentimental to some people, but I think it's almost too overly earnest. And I would think it would be fun for riffing.
I've also said for years, I guess I forgot you said that at that panel. Because I think for me, I do have a Disney movie in mind too, but it's a really old, weird one called The No-Mobile. And Tim finally saw it for the first time at some point during quarantine. I was like, you have to watch The No-Mobile. And it's awful. It's weird.
It's got the kids from Mary Poppins.
It has a couple of those stock actors that you see in almost every TV show, like, oh shoot, the guy from Dick Van Dyke, and then he's also in Leave It to Beaver.
Yep,
that producer, guy. I can't think. Anyway, it's about a rich person who owns all this land, all this like redwood land, and there are gnomes that live in it, and the gnomes are dying off, so he has to like transfer them to this other gnome community. So there's like this weird. It's not animation. I don't even know, but like, yeah, the gnomes are actual people, but they're smaller. So like, you can see how things are made. Anyway, it's a real trippy movie. I don't think the Disney Channel does not offer it.
It's not on Disney Plus.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay. I was going to look that up.
Because it's too horny.
It's a real horny, yeah, because it
ends with this male gnome finding
the only young male
gnome finds a population of a lot of female gnomes after a long journey.
A lot of randy girls.
And they have to catch him, and whoever catches him gets to marry him.
But everyone has to bubble up, and they're chasing each other through these bubbles.
And so it's this 10-minute chase sequences of all these ladies trying to nab this one dude, and it's too horny for streaming.
Speaking of relationships, I remember seeing a lot of shippers online for Synthia and the Bonehead.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Tunes and like kind of sweet romantic stuff. But I also saw a lot of talk that like Dr. Earhart and Synthia seem to have some chemistry. So what are your thoughts on Cynthia's dating life?
Well, this is how Synthia is. Like, whoever's there, man, that's great.
You can't tie her down.
She will not be tied down. And that really happened on the road. And then that's the choice I made for Dr. Earhart too. It just was like, she's just gonna. We also shot that, no joke, at like 7 a.m. It was so early. It was like the first thing of the day. And I was just, I was still kind of in shock that I got to be in a scene with Jay Elvis, and I don't think Joel was there that morning too. So I was like, just do this.
So your voice is even huskier than usual. It just came through in the performance.
So yeah, she's a clone, she's kind of an evil gal, and she's gonna do what she wants. I think some of that shipping that was happening early on with the Boneheads was because I think people found out that we were married in real life. And I was like, yeah, in real life, cool. But Synthia, that's a different story. Like, she's gonna use them, abuse them, lose them,
So Tim, who would win in a fight between the Bonehead and Dr. Earhart?
Ooh. Oh, I don't think the Bonehead can win any fight. Like, he's supposedly the muscle of a minion, but I don't think he has his own stuff together long enough to win in a physical altercation. He is not a smart dude. He's good for carrying stuff and moving things around, but that's, I think, about the extent of it.
You can like pull the lever.
I can pull the lever. Yeah. I guess I can kind of rough Jonah up a little bit, but
yeah.
Like the second you do something to outsmart him, he's going to be befuddled.
Yeah.
So I feel like Dr. Earhart has the edge there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadly.
So of course there's the the new season that will be coming up. But outside of that, do the two of you have any projects that you're doing either together or individually?
My family has a pretty rich history in Iowa. So my double cousin and her husband, and then me a little bit, put together a podcast about a particular story that happened in my family. And the first season went up, 2 years ago. And in the next few weeks, we will be working on the second season of that. It's called the Falling Low Podcast, and it's about the family farm in which my mom's side immigrated to. And and that's been a fun, like, historical thing and family thing that we've been working on. I say we, meaning it's mostly my double cousin and her husband and my aunt doing it. And I kind of come in when they want me to help out with stuff. But that's a fun thing that we will be continuing. Speaking of Iowa.
That's right. That's some good Iowa history
some
for you
nice,
right there.
Yeah. If you want to learn what a good guy Governor Ray was, talk about that a little. We'll be talking about that in the second season of this. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of tie-dyeing. So
what have you been tie-dyeing?
What haven't I been tie-dyeing?
That's a better question.
A lot of shirts, a lot of bags, sweatshirts,
masks.
Oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of masks, blankets, tea towels. I'm learning how to do shibori too. So like, hey, it's all, yeah, it's been a really weird year.
Sure has.
But thankfully we're okay. And everyone we know is okay. So that's nice. A lot of this will, depending on how much money is raised for the Kickstarter, that's really going to depend on how much work we will have to do. And a lot of this work we have to be here for. You cannot write for MST3K like out at a coffee shop, or, you know what I mean? Because it's stuff you've got to be watching and concentrating on. And